Hello, today is August 1st, 2023. It is currently 21:40. I use military time. Um, so in civilian time, that is 9:40 p.m. I have decided that tonight is a good time as any other to begin a podcast episode one for a podcast that I just decided to start doing. It's called Serotonin Made Me Do It. It's going to be about my hobbies and or anything really that I want. But for right now, the main intent is for hobbies that I've been hyperfixated on, that have chased because serotonin got involved, and I just delved into a rabbit hole and just really went for it. But before I go any further into that, allow me to introduce myself just in case you've randomly crossed paths with me, because I'm pretty sure most people that are going to watch this is going to be family or friends, people just I know in real life. So, my name is Linny. I'm 25. I use they, them pronouns as I am non binary. Specifically, I am a gender. So, um, I would really appreciate the correct use of my pronouns in the comments, or if you ever refer to me offline. Uh, Also, I do talk a lot with my hands. I fidget a lot. I might pop my knuckles every once in a while. Um, and I might sometimes forget what I'm talking about and just kind of leave that sentence trailing. And if that happens, it happens. I'm gonna try my best to actually have these episodes listed out with topics, but that doesn't always happen when I'm talking. Sometimes I forget what I'm saying, and even with like a list, I might get bored of it and go off and do something else. That's one of the fun things about me and organization. Sometimes it sticks, sometimes it doesn't. We'll see how it goes. So, for my hobbies, currently I am really into crochet. I started learning last week, Thursday. Um, and this is actually one of the projects that I learned how to crochet. This was the first one I made. And then the second one I made kind of came out a little wonky. Decided to make it into a bracelet. But I was also under migraine medication influences. So I was really tired and I just didn't really know what I was doing. So it came out a little messed up. But hey, it I'm learning. And it's like I said, I started learning Thursday, and there's like a whole story to that. I started learning how to crochet because my friend Alice taught me on that last Saturday uh, how to make tie knot blankets. And from there, of course, I got super giddy about it and made like two more blankets for tie knots. And I was like, well, why keep myself just making tie knot blankets? Why not learn how to actually hand sew, which was something I was interested in anyway, because I really like the look of it. I think it's cute. I think it's nice. I think the whole uh, motion of just hand sewing is really calming. And also, like, I have a Nana that makes quilts and does knitting and crocheting and all this other fun crafty stuff. And I was like, if she is so into this, I want to get into it. So I started getting into it, and I learned how to do a blanket stitch, got fabric to make a new blanket, and it took me 9 hours. 9 whole hours. I was focused on that whole blanket the entire time, just sat there learning how to stitch, and I was like, man, I really like this. So later that night, I ordered more fabric so I can make fabric blankets for my friend Alice and Joselle, and who Joselle is the inspiration behind making this podcast, because I was watching his, and I was like, oh, this seems like a lot of fun. I want to try it out, and thus it's happening. And I mean, I made YouTube videos before a year ago, which you can see them. There's 7 of them. They're all over the place, and one of the very first one I don't like anymore. I don't like the sound that I put in there, but I think the audio before just couldn't survive, so I had to mute it and then put sound over it, and but yeah, so crochet right now is my new hyperfixation. I've been doing it since Thursday, every day. And so, like, my current work in progress for crochet itself, I have three. So there's a granny square blanket that I'm making with a mix of traditional granny squares and solid granny squares. And they look really different. Traditional granny squares has holes in it, while the solid one is pretty solid. Like the name implies, it's solid. It looks like a just a solid color square, and I need 150 of them in order to make a twin size blanket, but I might need more. We'll see. I don't really know what I'm doing because I'm not following a pattern. I just found out I need 150 squares in order to make a twin size blanket off of Google, and then I decided that I was going to make the blanket 9 different colors and took those colors and found out I need to make 16 squares for each of them. And so I've been working on that slowly but surely. And then, while also my second work in progress right now is learning how to make these bean sprouts a lot better so I can teach my friend Alice because she wants to learn how to she wants to learn how to do crochet as well. And of course, she's decided to learn from me. And it's been a lot of fun. We actually tried it on Monday, seeing how that would go, and they had a lot of fun. Also, Alice uses she, they pronouns, so if you hear me alternating in between, that is why. Uh, and I'm also learning how to make a horizontal striped and ribbed beanie for Joselle. Uh, But of course, I have to do a prototype of that because I don't want to waste his yarn that I got for him. So I'm going to be making it out of fleece, and it's going to be blue and yellow, and then the colors make me super happy. Um, I'm, I'm just excited about having a new project, and new projects, and having a new hobby and learning new things. It's a lot of fun. Um, so before crochet, it was cross stitching, which I have work in progress with me right now that I've been working on since last year. It's not very far because, as I think I mentioned, my hobbies go in cycles. I will intensely work on one hobby at a time for months on end before I switch on to a new one. I don't just flip flop in between. Um, I don't know why. Sometimes I do, but most of the time I hyperfixate on one, stick to it until I'm burnt out on it, and then I move on to the next thing. So I've been cross stitching since 2018. Um, I started learning how to do that because I got like depressed and I was like, I need something as an outlet. So this was what I picked up. Of course, I wasn't very good at it because I did self taught and I didn't do any YouTube tutorials like I'm doing for crochet. So I just kind of learned through trial and error. But currently, I'm working on this, and it's a 14-page long pattern, and it's gonna be a skull all up in this sunflower field. And I got the pattern off of Reddit, and if I can find it later, I'll add it to the description, and if not, I'll add it to the comments, so this way it's not just like floating around um, as an unknown pattern in case anybody decides that they like it too and they want to get it. But yeah, I've been working on that for like a year now, just because of those intense cycles. And like right now, I actually have like another cross stitching project that I'm working on. It's the Emperor from the tarot card decks, but he's like a bull and he looks really cool. It's a smaller project, so I'll be done with it sooner if I get back to it. And then like I have a third one lined up for that one too, but I haven't started that one yet. Um, and then there's also drawing. I don't really do that much anymore, but I have been doing that more seriously since middle school. I mainly do drawing for vent art, so it's a lot of self doodling And I call them doodles because it's not like I'm really putting a lot of effort into this. Um, but yeah, I've got sketchbooks. I don't really want to show anything though. I used to post it on my Instagram every time I would finish something that I drew a lot of back in 2017, which, if some of you are family and you do follow me on Instagram, you would probably see that. But I've since erased all of them because it wasn't giving me serotonin anymore. It was making me super sad to see that stuff. So I was like, goodbye. um, Another hobby of mine is reading. I've been a big reader since sixth grade, so 2011, 2010, I think. Um, so I read mangas. I've got over 150 volumes, I think. This is just one that's really not well known and that I really like. And there's like only 3 volumes out currently right now. I'm putting it a little closer. Yep, there we go. Now you can see for yourselves. So there's that. And then I also read, obviously, novels. It's, my backdrop kind of shows that. Um, but not only do I just read the books, sometimes I annotate them. And this is actually one of my comfort reads, The Host. Um, it's also not a really talked about book either, which is surprising. I think it's really good. Yeah, it's long, but it's a standalone sci-fi romance that I'm just like, why is this not talked about more? It's great. I love it. I've been reading it since middle school. I read it once a year, twice sometimes if I'm really in the mood for it. But as you can see, I annotated it, which I think I did this a couple months ago because I got into annotating books like really quickly. It I forgot to check on my Instagram because I post book reviews on there too. Um, but like I'll highlight my favorite things, favorite passages. I'll leave sticky notes. I'll write in it. Yeah, like there's just very little times that I'll actually write in it because I get lost in reading. Not only do I read manga and novels, but I also read comic books. And this is the first one that got me into it. Something is Killing the Children by these guys here. If it wants to focus, I mean, you can see it pretty well. But this was the first trade that I bought, and I didn't even read the summary. I didn't read anything except for the first page, and I bought it, and then I went to the comic shop like a couple days later, bought the rest of the trades that were already published, and then proceeded to binge read all of it at like midnight up until 4 in the morning. Um, and then I have like a whole bunch of other comics now. And so, like, that was a serotonin thing for a while there, was just buying a bunch of books and comics and mangas. Um, but yeah, so I'll be sharing stuff, my opinions on this too. And then there's also journaling. I've been doing that more seriously since 2019, when I had like a really bad depressive episode. So I journal mainly for mental health reasons. Um, and I mean, I also book journal too. But here is my current journal. Um, Her name is Ivy Hecate. I think I said that right, maybe not. But I name all of my journals uh, because I kind of use the journal entries as like a letter to them. And Alice helped me name them and decorate them. And that's another thing too. Ivy Hecate has all pronouns. They're perfectly fine using all of them. So, yeah. And then this is my book journal. This one doesn't actually have a name. It's just a book journal. But I've been doing it since 2022 in October. And it just goes like on my reading journey, So, like last year, I read 2022. My reading goal was to read 22 books, but I think I read like 47 books. So it's like I'll do like bingo cards, what my reviews are, some thoughts when I started reading it, and all that. Um, so it's like I'll do these things, and it's a lot of fun, but also sometimes I lose the fun for it and don't really go to it that much. Um, but yeah, so that's my book journal. And then I mean I also have journals like this right here. These are catch-all journals. So my brother got me this journal, and it is now my crochet project journal. And it doesn't it's nothing fancy. It's literally like what I'm working on, the yarns needed, everything else that I want to do, and then there's a section specifically for future projects that I want to learn. I mean, right, I can't show you guys right now, but I do have my content journal in front of me too. It has a list of what I want to talk about for this first episode of the podcast, and then it also has what I was originally doing before when I was making the Stitch with Me's, Read with Me's. Well, I never got to make the Stitch with Me's because I couldn't figure out the camera way, but I'll probably figure it out now that I'm going to be in this area longer. And then moving on to the next thing is video games. Video games is a big, not a huge serotonin drive unless I'm playing the Legend of Zelda series, which Twilight Princess, great game, recommended to everybody. Been playing it since 2007. I absolutely adore it. I think this is the game that everybody should play first to get into the Legend of Zelda series. I even have a tattoo specifically for this game. And then Wind Waker is another really good game that I think a lot of people should get into as well. Don't get me wrong, Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, both great games. Both would probably be good starters for somebody that wants to get into Legend of Zelda. But I'm biased. I think Twilight Princess should be the way to go. It was there for me when I was having a hard time. So, and then of course there's going to be other games like this one. This is Omori. It is a RPG game that deals with depression, anxiety, suicidal ideation, and eating disorders. Um, so it's a little bit more on the serious side, a little dark. But so far of what I've played, it's a lot of fun. But right now my serotonin drive for video games is not very high, so I haven't been playing video games a lot. I also play on multiple different consoles. So there's like the Wii U, my PlayStation 5, my Switch, um, my Game Boy, whatever I feel like playing on is what I'll play on. And then finally, for my last hobby, uh, there's writing. I've been writing on and off since middle school. I was getting more serious into writing in 2011 in sixth grade, but I was really, really bad at it. And so I got like discouraged and didn't pick it up until I went back into high school, and I took like a creative writing class and I enjoyed it a lot, but I never stuck with it for long until 2022. November specifically, I participated in National Novel Writing Month, also known as NaNoWriMo, and that's where you write 50,000 words within 30 days. And I won. I actually did it. I was writing a story called Last Rites. That's the current title for it. And um, I haven't touched it since. It's not giving the serotonin anymore, but it's over 50k words now. It's like 90k, I think. And then I've participated in 2 nano camps since then. So April recently of this year, I wrote for a story called It's Always Been You. It's actually a really crappy memoir um, of like just my journey with like liking people so far. And I wrote 90k words in 18 days. Um, and I have already gone through and made like edits and revisions, but I also went underway with draft 2. And this little tab right here shows you like how far into draft 2 I got before I just stopped. Not because it wasn't giving the serotonin, I was enjoying it, but it became too much, and I don't think it's going to be a project that I'm going to go back to until I'm okay later on with like what it contains. Um, we'll see. I mean, I plan to do this podcast weekly. I'm gonna try and do 2 uploads a week, but we'll see. We'll see. I tried to do 2 uploads before, and it got overwhelming because I was trying to also backlog videos. We'll see how it goes. Um, and then July's Nano, I wrote for a story called Celestial Solace, and I did not actually get that far. No, I got pretty far. I got like 41k words and some change, but I got a really bad migraine on a Saturday that I learned how to make the tie blankets with Alice, and I didn't write any words, which is always a slippery slope for me. If I don't stick with the habits that I'm making, I am very likely to lose said habits. And I also, maybe I was just burnt out. Maybe I was unmotivated. I didn't keep going at it, even though my word count necessary was so low. Um, so the number got bigger and bigger on how many words I would need, and I didn't have the energy for it. But I do plan to go back to this draft and finish it because one, it's a really good story. I have a journal specifically made for it where I was doing world building for a whole month in June, and so it's like it's there, it's ready. I've got a binder too that's full of scenes that I want to include into this story. So it's not like it's dead. It's just the serotonins kind of followed a new hobby into the crochet. And and now the podcast. So we'll see how well I can keep everything rolling and how long the crochet sticks before I switch over to a different hobby. But that's pretty much it for the first episode. I just kind of wanted to talk about me, like introducing myself, introducing the hobbies, the intent behind the podcast, and we'll see how it goes from there. All right. Well, bye. Thanks for listening.